Islam, Islam, Islam. Brother Maurice Pennington Bay, Moorish Master student, with another one of the Moorish Master students, my brother, the beloved, Shay Ray Hill, Islam. Mo, how you doing, Mo?
Islam, all praise be to Allah, all is well. It is an honor to be here, brother.
Absolutely, absolutely. Islam, Mo. So this episode of Paradigm Shift in the podcast is titled, I Ain't Trying to Hear That.
You're
Because
not
I
trying to hear
truly
that.
ain't trying to hear that. Straight up. And what it is that I ain't trying to hear is something that me and the brother Shay Ray Hill heard over and over and over again while we was in the distant grips, watching brothers get out and come right back to jail. And it was the excuses, you know.
Islam.
It's too hard, I got a felony. Don't nobody want to give me a job. All of the stuff that we come home just to find out it really ain't that hard, is it, Moe?
No, not at all. Brothers have a habit of, operating their thought processes in a certain way. And when I used to speak with some of the brothers, I would tell them, when you say things like hard or difficult, all you're really saying is that it's not a habit yet. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, when we enter into those dismal crypts, a lot of us, myself included, because when you and myself met, that wasn't my first rodeo, of course.
Right.
But when we enter into those dismal crypts, we have a habit of believing that there's some type of magic that's just going to take place. All you got to do is sit there until your time is up, and then magically everything will work out for you, and that's not the truth at all.
No
That's not
bull
the truth
jug,
at all.
huh? And
Islam.
Mo, I watched so many Asiatics, so many good men, right? And cause see, that's what really got
Right.
my attention when I seen the good men come back. Brothers who when they left, I just knew
Yeah.
that I would not see these brothers again, not in prison. You understand me?
Right.
And
Right.
I started to ask myself, what is it like why are they coming back? You know, and so I started to study it. And I found out that it wasn't what was going on when they get out of prison that was causing them to come back. It was what they were doing while they were in prison that set them up to come right back. Would you agree?
Islam. Or
Islam.
lack.
You,
Well,
because what we did, when we walked the yard,
you know, well, we were
demonstrate
building.
more.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
this is the thing. First and foremost, a poor personality is not a prerequisite for prison. So you can have some really,
Mm,
really, really nice guys, and a corrupt personality is not a prerequisite either. So this is why some
that's
of the
right.
guys go out and and they own good real estate, so to speak, in your mind. They've shown you some really good character traits and things of that nature.
Hmm.
However, if you don't work to solidify this type of thought process, then these showings of the attributes of the great God in man, these showings will be kind of like leaves in the wind. They're in the area for a little while, but forces can cause them to disappear. And so if we do not work on ourselves in a manner which serves to establish a different thought process, then it's only law that we repeat, that we find ourselves, on unproductive repeat, so to speak. So
Absolutely.
it takes
Absolutely.
a willingness to study. it takes a willingness to change, you know.
Yeah.
And then you
You
can't
know,
have a mindset of excuse. Yeah.
no, I heard what you was going to say. You said you can't have a mind state of excuses. You know,
Right. There's a
that's
difference. There's a difference. There's a difference between
there's a
an
difference.
explanation for a situation and an excuse for a situation. An
Uh,
explanation. You're basically revealing. It's a revelation of a path that you've taken to a place. And you don't necessarily speak with a spirit of complacency, whereas an excuse is something that begs someone else's forgiveness, or it begs someone's pardon, and it even begs for acceptance for the condition, situation, or circumstance that someone is in. So there's a big difference between the two, and sometimes brothers are caught in what I like to call thought inertia. And
mm,
with thought inertia, basically what happens is once you revisit or entertain certain types of ideas enough and add not only your attention but your intention, you start to plant certain types of seeds in your soil of soul. And over time, you establish what we call a habit. And just like inertia, once you set that thought process in motion, if you don't set a new thought process in motion to redirect what you've already put in motion, reason that you would only continue to get what you've always gotten. We probably heard it said that, as a man thinketh, so it is.
um,
Times people aren't willing to put in the work. They don't understand that it's necessary thought, or else you resort to the patterns that are already established. You know,
it's love. It's love. And I think it was one of the Moors. It was one of the Moors, Mo. It was he was the sergeant Marti. This was when I was in Allenwood. Brother named Clausen Bay. Clausen Bay had did 23 years, and he was he is a beautiful brother. I mean, you know, love Allah's prophet. Did everything that you could ask of a member in the temple. And when he got ready to leave, I was certain, that this good man was leaving. He was going home, and he wasn't never going to come back.
right,
And Mo, it wasn't an entire year. A whole year didn't even pass. And Clausen Bay was back in the yard. And he wasn't just back, he was back with like 20 something years, you know.
yes,
And
Lord,
when he came, they told me like, I had found out, prior to him hitting the yard that he had caught a new case of armed bank robbery charge. And so I knew he was, possibly going to be coming back to the same compound. And when he got there, he seen me, Islam, Sheikh Islam, and I'm like, I need to holler at you. Meet me on the track. So when we went out on the track and we went to walk in the yard, I asked him, I say, Mo, what are you doing here? Like, how did you get back? And he was like,
right,
man, Mo, I went home. My mom was struggling. She ain't had no money. My sisters and my brothers weren't doing nothing for my mom. I'm in there sleeping on my mom's couch, and it ain't really no food in there, man. You like, man, I couldn't let my mom stay like that, man. I tried to hit a lick. Ooh. So, and at the time, when I was about 32, 33 years old. So we talking this was over 10 years ago. And but I'm a more scientist. So while he was
okay,
talking, the lesson started to say to me that what he's saying does not square with reality or truth or anything that we stand for as Moorish Americans. None of the things that we've been working toward gonna lead you back to prison. You understand what I'm saying? So I say to the Mo, I say, but Mo, you just did
that's right,
23 years and your mom was all right. She was all right for 23 years. She was all right. And you went home and you couldn't give yourself a chance to actually be able to help her, not just in the moment or one time, but for the rest of the remainder of her life. Now you done came back with all this time. It's the likelihood of you ever seeing your mother again as a free man is slim to zero. Because that more back then was the age that we are now. You understand what I'm saying? So now here it is, Mo. These people that gave you a quarter century. You
That's right.
understand me? So right then and there,
Right.
it stirs something in me to say I cannot ever allow for this to happen to me because I definitely consider myself a good Moorish American. I definitely felt like I was doing everything that I could do and should do while at that time. But I had to go back and examine and make sure, like, hold up, is there any chips in the armor? Am I leaving some meat on the bone? Like, am I actually prepared to get home and to stay home? I started to study. Everybody who got off that bus, Moab, I mean, Mo, you know how it be when they start coming in? Because a federal prison bus holds about 39 people. You need two whole buses to get one person who coming to jail for the
That's right.
first time. It takes two whole buses. So you talk about one out of every, 78 people are first time offenders walking into the prison for the first time, and the others either being transferred from one prison to another or coming back to jail. So I'm sitting here watching this process, and I'm like, man, I start watching these people.
Right.
I started watching them. I'm watching them. I'm watching everything. I want to see what he on. I'm like, well, these boys, they're not doing anything to
Right.
actually prepare themselves for a world where we don't come from. Because the reality is, Mo, me and you had this conversation walking the track a couple times. We not from society originally. We come from the street. We come from the street and we just spent
That's
a
right.
long time in prison. So here it is. We got 30 plus years of our lives, living outside of the laws and the rules of society. So we have to add to what we do on a day-to-day basis while we locked up, learning how to live in society. You know.
That's
So
right.
for
Well,
for
what's happening more is this. Go ahead.
I'm listening.
Oh, I didn't know. I must have cut you off. Islam. So what's happening is this. Well, while the carnal is sweet to man, he's not going to find good reason to stop indulging in certain things. Like when you ask the brother, how did you get back? You know what I'm saying? Why are you back?
Mhm.
Both of these questions are really just begging him to give you good reason. And when you
Yeah.
basically said what translates as give me good reason for your return to these dismal crypts, give me good reason for your return to these universities, because that's what these are. These are
Mhm.
schools, right? And they're not necessarily schools of thought, but they are schools that can force you to think. Just like the Prophet
That's
Noble Drew
right.
Ali instructed the Moors, if I can get you to thinking, you'll save yourselves. But here's the
Mhm.
thing, man learns by what man suffers. And when we're talking about suffrage, we're not just talking about the physical pains. We're talking about a
Mhm.
suffrage in the mind. When you care about something enough to mull it over in the mind, for what purpose? For the purpose of separating the truth from the falsehoods within your understanding. For the purpose of separating the truth from the falsehoods in your memory, in your will, in your
Mhm.
thought processes, and so forth and so on. So when you have suffered enough to where you're willing to start saying, well, what's the truth of the matter? When you're willing to start asking yourself that, it's one thing when a brother returns to these dismal crypts and a brother outside of himself, such as Maurice Pennington Bay or Che Ray L or so forth and so on, asks him, hey, why are you back? It's a whole nother thing when a man is finally tired of life putting its
That's
foot in his behind, because that's the equivalent of saying your arms are too short to box for God. We're talking about that life force, right?
right.
So when a man is
That's right.
finally tired of that, find himself he will find himself in the right place at the right time to where he
Mhm.
actually asks himself, what am I doing here? Why am I, I like to say that ignorance is a lock, questions are keys.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Mhm.
so one of the things that we have to understand, like I said before, is that prison is not magical, because some people say, hey man, you've been in trouble before. This isn't your first rodeo. You've done, myself, I was in boys jails and things of that nature, then
Mhm.
the county jail, then the state jail, and then federal prison. So I was stuck on unproductive repeat, but this is the thing. A lot of people don't realize this, that going to prison does not fix individuals. It doesn't fix young men and young
Mhm.
women. It doesn't fix adult males or adult females. It doesn't fix you. What happens is this: going to prison is just like when your mama or your father told you not to touch something when you were a small child and you touched it anyway and they smacked you on the behind. The smack on the
Mhm.
behind does not teach the lesson. The smack on the behind serves to hand you enough suffrage to where they have your undivided attention. Once
Mhm.
the pain gets your attention and you're ready to learn something, you're ready to be educated, you're ready to have the best brought out of you, then starts the lesson. But when you become an adult, this is why it looks so shameful when you see adult men and women constantly on repeat. When you become an
Mhm.
adult, it's time for you to care about your education. No one's going to pat you on the behind and give you the lesson. You've got to actually take inventory in the midst of those pains, ask yourself these questions, and then seek out education. And so, more the bottom line is once we start to ask ourselves why, once we start to ask ourselves why, right? The sinew reasoning. Why is it really?
Mhm.
And you have to enter this. You have to enter this. This is a sacred temple when you start questioning yourself. You have to enter this temple humble. This is why life beats on us so much. Nothing brings out the
Mhm.
humility in a man or a woman like a whooping. Okay.
Whoop.
And so once we're beat down, once we're beat
Yes,
down by life, we're ready to listen. You see
that's
what I'm
right.
saying? And again, I'm speaking from farther than just the physical. So once we're beat down by life, we're ready to listen. Once we're suffering, we're ready to listen. And this
Mhm.
is when certain ideas come through the ears, when our true intentions are in our prayers. Your cries out like, oh God, please. In those moments of pain,
Mhm.
you're really ready to listen to something. Okay.
That's
Now,
right.
in those moments when you're ready to listen, you have to accept certain lessons. You have to start disciplining yourself in certain ways so that you can establish new patterns, right? Or else, just like
Mhm.
it says in the Holy Quran of Mecca, we have it as the revealed word of our Father God Allah. You know, while we're going through tumultuous waters and things of that nature, yeah, we cry out, but when the waters calm down, man or women, they find themselves back into their habit of thought processes unless they've done what it takes to change their conditions, unless they've done what it takes to
That's right.
change their thought processes. And unfortunately, this is not the concern. When we first enter into these dismal crypts, the concern is how do I quell my fears, my inadequacies, you know what I mean? Ego, vanity,
Yeah.
and it's still everybody else's fault but my own.
Yeah.
We're still giving away our power, and what I mean by that is the person that pointed the finger at me in the courtroom. That's
Mhm.
why I'm here. The
Mhm.
bank I robbed. If the bank wasn't there, I wouldn't have robbed it. It was my feet. My feet failed me. I tried to run, but they wouldn't move fast enough. So if my feet were so forth and so on, foolishness and folly.
Mhm.
So first we have to get beat up more. He had to come back. I know more. He
That's
went
right.
home after doing 20 years. He was out for 10 months. He had a 30-year sentence. Within 10
Wow.
months, he was back with a 30-year sentence. And I said, what happened? He said, well, first and foremost, I didn't give the prophet a chance. I
That's
didn't do
right.
what it takes to establish a new mindset,
That's right.
you know,
That's right.
and that right there takes work.
It does. Islam first. Hey, Islam to the brother Yamin Bey, Islam Jackson Bey, Islam Williams Bey, Islam Sheikh Il Bey. That's the most. See that now? Islam. There go the brother Barzil. Hey, you know something? Look, and I'm laughing at the memory, but it's not funny. Watch this. So this one I was a young mo. I was assistant grand chief. I was at Coleman, so it was right. I probably was in the temple for about a year and a half maybe. And a brother from DC named Hargrove Bay, he had brought a visitor because we used to have a thing, every time you come to the temple every Friday or to Sunday school, you had to bring somebody with you. You know what I mean? So he brung a visitor with him, and I don't remember what I spoke about that night because I never, study what I'm going to say or write speeches or anything. You know that. My whole thing is I just meditate and just pray that in that moment I say the right thing. So that day was,
Islam.
no different than any other day. and I spoke that day. And the next day, I was out and I was teaching Quran class on the rec yard. And the brother Hargrove Bay walks up to me with the other brother. His brother, his name is Wayne. So he walks up to me with Wayne, and he say, "Islam, Sheikh." He say, the brother got some questions. He said, "I know you teach the class." He's like, "So I'll come back later." I say, hold up. I tell Morris, keep reading right there. What's the drawing?" So he like, "Man, well, the brother got some questions, then I can't answer them." He's like, "So, can you spend a dish with him and maybe you can answer his questions?" So I'm like, Islam, all as well. So we start walking the track. I'm convinced that the Mo gonna start asking me questions about, something that, happened in the meeting yesterday, something that I might have said last night in the meeting. So listen to how the conversation go, Mo. So the brother say he reaches out his hand, he press my hand, he say, "My name is Wayne." He like, "Oh, from DC." He like, "I'm a Christian. I was born and raised in the church." He said, I just got done doing 12 years in the feds. And he like, "Man, I did it in the church every day, praying to God." And he say, "Man, I went home." He say, "Man, I caught a body, I got a life sentence, man." He say, "What happened?" So the first thing that dawns on me is, what in the world make him think that I know what happened? That was first. That was the first thing that dawned on me. And then it all came to me. So I said to him, I said, "Listen, Mo," I said, don't blame the church. It wasn't, something that you learned in the church that was inadequate. I said it was the fact that you didn't go further and prepare yourself for what you knew you was gonna have to face when you get out there in that world. And you ended up right around the same old crowd, even though you were different. See, the thing is, when we walk out of here, we can't go back out there and think we're gonna get with them wolves and get in the streets. A lot of people make that mistake. After you do a whole lot of time
That's
in prison, you think that same old young street savvy dude, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna run around. Man, these
yeah.
youngsters is out there drilling. They've been out here while you was locked up. They understand their emotions is different. You understand? It don't matter. You could have been in
Yeah.
prison going hard as you want to and doing all of the no. Your reflexes is just different. So if you get out there and you
That's
get
right.
yourself in a position where it might not be something that you actually have to demonstrate a killing, but still, what happens if you don't change him now, then he change you later? And I said, so Mo, when you was locked up, you needed to get yourself prepared to make a complete 180 when you went home, an entire change. One thing about the
Yeah.
Bible, because he was a Christian. In Mark's Most High God, he
Okay.
said if you quote the Bible, people will believe you. So one thing about the Bible and in the book of Genesis, all right, when it talks about Adam and Eve, Allah told Adam and Eve, "Do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." All right. This is good plus evil. Don't try to play the 50. Don't think you could be halfway in the streets
Right.
and halfway in the temple. Don't think you could be halfway in the church and halfway in the club. No, it don't work like that. See, Allah wants your complete entire will to be his complete and entire will, or else he got all day
Yes.
and every day for the rest of eternity to wait for you to get it right.
Yeah.
But this physical form don't got all day and the rest of eternity to be waiting. And the people who you put yourself
That's right.
around. You understand me? We got to be consciously aware of where we come from. I would tell him, listen, I tell ones all the time. When I was getting ready to get out, a few people said, they say, "Man, Pennington Bay, man, you've been locked up a long time. You're not scared to go home. Like, you ain't worried about what's going on." And I told them, no. They like, "Man, but the world done changed so much." I say, "Man, none of the changes that the world has went through matter to me because I never lived where I'm going. I never did what I'm finna
That's
get
right.
ready to go do. So it's no changes that I'm going to remember. It's all new to me." And academically, while I
That's
was
right.
locked up in them dismal crypts, I did everything that I could do to prepare. Now the only thing I can do is come out here and experience it. You see? But I'm gonna
See,
tell
yeah,
you
that's
something though, Mo, because when I say that when I ain't trying to hear that. See, now I ain't trying to hear that is now that I'm here, I'm like, man, come on, man. Y'all was talking about, oh, you got a felon, don't nobody want to give you a job. Oh, you got a felon, don't nobody want to give you a crib. Oh, you got a felon, this, that, and whatever. Oh, because you Asiatic, you got olive tone. Every time you drive down the street, wrong gonna be trying to pull you over. Everybody gonna be trying to stop you and knock you off your pivot. Man, ain't none of that stuff been true. Since I've been home, man, I haven't had no issues. Let me I ain't gonna lie. I haven't had nowhere near, I have not met nowhere near the resistance that I was expecting, that I was prepared to meet. I haven't seen it at
Right.
all. You understand me? As a matter of fact, I would be upset if it would be easier than it's been being. Challenge me.
Right. But a lot of times, man, a lot of times, brother, when they're telling you the things, when they're mentioning these so-called stumbling blocks that they really should be preparing themselves to turn into stepping stones, they're basically letting you know that these things are going to be acceptable excuses. You know what I'm saying? First and foremost, it's not reasonable.
That's
Nobody's
right.
trying to hire a felon, and nobody's trying to this. You don't know everybody. You don't know everybody.
Absolutely.
Number one, and number two is, number two is this: when you start to prepare yourself to be, see, this is why we got to stop being so carnal, and we got to actually start
Hmm.
tapping into who we actually really are. Because when you
That's right.
don't have, when you're walking around with smarts, I told people smarts ain't good enough. My dog was smart, right? And a whole bunch of intellectualism without spiritual education that serves to bring before the mind issues in the carnal issues. It serves to bring before the mind things that you can solve as far things that begin and end. Once
Hmm.
brothers have to really start to get into spirituality. Why? Because there's a law that governs all events. When you start to make yourself useful, people, places, and things naturally come into your circumference that you can use that power of good on. Because when I say useful and I say the word good, that's the same thing. So once you start to work on yourself to make yourself useful, then people, places, and things converge on that mindset. But this isn't the concern. It's not a concern. I'm gonna tell you something. Again, brothers, the thing is, people don't want to work for what it is that they truly want in life, and it's because we're not
That's
spending
right.
enough time reflecting. Reflection is the
That's
business
right.
of man. Getting a sense of his state is his first duty, right?
First dude.
But
That's
we
right.
don't do that. We don't call to remembrance things that happened prior to that moment, and we don't like to call to remembrance those things in the proper light, even when we do. So, a lot of
Hmm.
times life has to beat on us in order to get us to do this. Uh, um,
That's right.
I used to tell brothers this: when they don't realize how the studying and how the reflecting and things of that nature work, when they don't have, a comprehensive awareness of these types of things, it makes it easy for them to have a reservation to fall back on foolishness and folly. It's kind of like when people say they'll stop smoking or stop drinking. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to drink anymore unless she gets on my nerve, unless this, if this, or only if it's a Friday, and only if the
Yeah.
sun comes up, but the clouds, there's a reservation to fall back on the foolishness and folly. And a lot of this
Yeah.
happens because they don't have an understanding of spiritual law. Now, I tell brothers this, because a lot of times they say, listen, man, I really want to be a better person. I really want to be a better person. You know what I'm saying? I'm tired of getting whooped by life. How does this work? Now, number one, Allah knows best. All right.
That's
But just
right.
so that you can gain, a sort of knowledge of things, so that you can cut on and act, so you can cut on your power of belief, which will help you to maneuver forces in your life. You know what I'm saying? Let me put it this way. It's in the nature of the mind to become what it thinks. Okay. And
Hmm.
when we entertain certain types of thoughts, we become, aka we come to be, aka we arrive at certain states of
Hmm.
mind. While in these states of mind, we start to produce things that mirror the nature of that state of mind. We produce these things in our mental, and then we produce these things in people, places, things, and circumstances outside of ourselves. And when you start to get a hold of lessons such as what the prophet Noble Drew Ali brought, such as what the forerunner of the prophet, Brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey, brought, so forth and so on. When you start to get a hold of these lessons and you start to put your mental hands on these lessons, something happens. What happens is the same thing that happens in our communities. For example, let me say it like this. And unfortunately, in our communities, there's this drug out there. They call it fentanyl. There may be something even 10 times more powerful than that. It depends on the type of war that people are waging on our people. But fentanyl was one of the last things I heard about where when you mentioned it, everybody gasped. They can't believe it. Wow. Okay. So if you can imagine putting your physical bare hands on fentanyl. And whenever I say this to people, they say, oh man, it's about to be a problem. Now, they might not know everything there is to know about this chemical fentanyl. And they might not know everything there is to know about how the pores in the hand work to absorb things in through the pores and into the bloodstream, and how it interacts with every cell and so forth and so on, and leads to a certain type of reaction. They may not know all these things, but one of the things they believe for certain is if you put your bare hands on this drug, there's going to be a reaction. Like so, when you put your mental hands on different ideas, all right, and this is where discipline comes in, because a lot of these guys, Pennington Bay, a lot of these guys, especially the super tough guys that you met in the prison, wearing out thou most weak, that wherein thou seemest most strong. So you got a lot of these tough guys, but in reality, they're afraid. Don't nobody duck rep, but they duck the number one foe, and that's self. That's why, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to that, man, don't duck no wreck, man, I ain't trying to hear that. You know what I'm saying? This is the thing. Because you ducking you. All right. So when you put your mental hands on new ideas, when you're constantly revolving new ideas through your mental hands, although you may not know everything there is to know about the new idea, although you may not know everything there is to know about how the nature, the energy, the power, the force of a new idea seeps into the mental hands, into the etheric bloodstream, and gives birth to new ideas. Although you may not understand that, understand this. The same way there'll be a reaction if you put your bare hands on something as potent as fentanyl is the same thing that's going to happen when you put your mental hands on ideas. Okay? And what you have to do is believe, first and foremost, that you have the power to change your condition. You have to believe that you have the power to change your condition. Because once you start to believe such things, you start to give birth to ideas. And then comes the hardest part, Pennington Bay. Acting as thy soul dictates. Because the ether sending you an idea is the same as the proverbial leading the horse to the water. Just because you get a good idea, that doesn't fix your life. I've had plenty of great ideas. But I haven't always had the mental resources, meaning I haven't developed the strength of character in the past. I hadn't developed, a habit of directing my will in a certain avenue and staying focused long enough so that the seed could unfold as does the bud unfold to show the flower. So you can get as many ideas as you want, but then you have to act according to the dictates of your soul. And what motivates these types of things? Pain. This is why we have to keep revisiting those dismal crypts. This is why, our people have to keep getting gunned down physically and mentally, beat up physically and mentally. You see what I mean? This is why we have to have a door closed in our face. Man, ain't nobody trying to hire me, you see what I'm saying? First of all, stop walking on the job talking about, you see what I'm saying? If the way that you speak, walk, act, if the things that you understood yesterday were not good enough for you today, then you do things today so that tomorrow you have a reason to believe that your condition can be better. You see what I mean? And these types
draw
of
real quick, Mo. Draw for this. So right before I left, I'm gonna say for like that last year, We facilitating a lot of class, sitting in a lot of class, being around a lot of the young men that's there. And I start to have this one reoccurring thought whenever I see these youngsters acting a fool, you understand, pants sagging all the way down their tail, all this old madness, right? I would say there ain't no way I would hire him. Because these are the lines along which I'm thinking. When I see this, there ain't no way I would hire him. Now, if I'm saying this, as much as I love them, then I know what they gonna be facing when they get out there and they walk into somebody's establishment who only care about their establishment, their money, their business, and their profit. They saying, man, you can't add to my corporation, my company. I'm taking a risk that's not worth taking if I take you on as an employee. And you know what? Something else, Domo? It's a little deeper than that because it's out here too. I'm in a halfway house. Do you know how many brothers I walk by? I'm not in the halfway house no more. All praise due to Allah. 2 days. I'm out of there, right? I've been out for 2 days. But I will walk past the same men and women every day, just sitting there, passing cigarettes around in a circle. Give me a short, give me a short. Then after a while, they see you going to work, every day, and now they want to borrow $5 and $10 from you. And I'm sitting here looking at these individuals and I'm saying to myself, like, y'all didn't get enough.
No.
Then, especially because during time over the last, 4 years has been a lot harder, than during time prior to that because that COVID situation and all of the lockdowns and, the lack of movement and the restrictions that people are going through right now, we didn't have that, initially when we first went in. We had freedom. We could meet, when we were. You remember how hard it was for us to get out on the rec yard together?
I remember.
For us just to spin the disc and talk about the possibilities of man. As a matter of fact, I don't think I didn't even see you, Mo. I would see the Mo Butler Bay because we were in the same building.
That's right. I had to wait for
and I would walk with that young Mo, and I would walk with that young Mo, and I would ask him every day the same questions. Just because I wanted him to think, because I seen so much potential, but also seen a lot of brothers with that type of potential go and come back. So I would ask him every day, what you going to do when you get out? How you going to do it when you get out? When you going to start? Where you going to start? Why is that your idea? The same way we go through the one-on-ones, if the Prophet Noble Jew Ali said, when, then we got to figure out where, why, how, why, that's what the same thing with everything else in life. All these brothers will always have a plan to make money. Some of them had real good plans. The businesses that they're going to start when they get out. So they had the means to do it. But then I would tell them, now who you going to hang out with? What you going to do on your spare time? Because those is the times where you're going to get in trouble. That's right. The people who you go out there and you spend your time with, remember we're spending time. So in return, we're going to get something. You better make sure that you get in return what you want for your time.
That's right.
Or else you will get more time to be stuck in places like this, prison. And you know what's worse than being physically locked up is being mentally locked up. You talked about this at Sunday school. You talked about the mental slavery that our people have now, that the chattel and the real physical slavery is over with. The Prophet Noble Jew Ali told the Moors. He said it is a mental slavery that you have now.
That's right.
And these chains of mental slavery, that's what they look like. A whole rack of different excuses. A whole bunch of reasons why we cannot unite, why we cannot progress, why we cannot be successful, why the good idea is too good for me. It's too good of an idea for me to have. You understand what I'm saying? I can't do it. We can't do it. It's a lot of programs out here that I want to make everybody who listen. I want y'all to know, wherever you at, wherever there's the community colleges and the universities, they have districts, and in every district, it don't matter where you at in the United States of America, there's what's called the workforce program. Now, let me tell y'all about this workforce program. Um, I left all the flyers in the car, so I would share with the brother. Well, I'm come back. Matter of fact, I'm gonna post one on my page, so check that out later, y'all. But the workforce program is an opportunity that is open to anyone, who is over 18 years old. If you have a GED or a high school diploma, then what they do is they pay you $15 an hour to go to school,
What?
right? And yes, they pay you to go to school. And when I say they pay you $15 an hour, this is tax free. So that's more like $18, $19 an hour. All right. So they pay you to go to school and they offering classes like CompTIA, which is the IT, which I just signed up for myself. I'm a super geek, super nerd, the master student. I love to learn. So I'm going to school for IT while I'm off. Y'all know I'm in college right now, seeking that PhD in psychology. You understand me? You understand me? But I'm gonna go while I'm off. I'm gonna go and get this IT demonstration. You feel me? Because I can use that. The
That's
Prophet
right.
Noble Joe Ali said, "Get a good European education, and he could use you." So I'm gonna make myself useful. But they also offer CDLs, which okay. So I started school. I started the summer school on June the 3rd. So one of the Moors, he started on May the 28th. He's already working and he's making $32 an hour working for the garbage truck. He drives a
Yes, sir.
garbage truck. He done completed his CDL already. They offer the solar panel training. They offer all types of classes. Whatever you want to take as far as nursing and medicine, they offer all that. I mean, I'm pretty much any class that you could get, and these classes are between 6 to 12 weeks, and it's over with. And then now here go the thing that makes this program really really special. Once you complete their program, they get the job for you. Yes, they get the job for you. So you don't have to go to school and then go out and try to find a job. You're gonna go to these people gonna pay you while you go to school. Then when you finish, they sending you straight to work. And they only looking for living wage paying jobs. Okay, so these is good jobs, it's a good opportunity, no matter where you at. Look it up. If you in the Peoria area, then the sister who is over the Peoria area, Peoria, Illinois, her name is Janice, and her office is at um, ICC East Peoria. You could call her, you could look it up, Google it, or you could go down there, talk to her. They're gonna hook you up. That's one of the opportunities. Then they got another program that's here in Illinois. They got it here, they got it in Chicago, and they got it in Florida. It's called Jobs Partnership. Jobs Partnership also pay you to take their program so that they can educate you and make you ready to be employed. There are a lot of programs out there, and these are not programs that's just for felons. These are not just programs for homeless people. These are programs for anybody, Mo. You understand
Hmm.
me? For anybody. When Jesus said, "Seek, ask, knock," he meant that. You're
That's
not
right.
going to get anything while you sitting on your hands. You're not going to get anything. All right.
That's right.
I like to demonstrate it like this. This is what I used to say it on when I was on the yard. I'm gonna see if it'll resonate with a lot of us still. I used to tell this parable to the Moors. It's like we in prison, right? So now I get out. Now all of a sudden this time I'm finna get ready to leave. Now I had a few years left, but now I'm finna get ready. And you like, man, Islam, bro, like man, well, what happened? I'm like, man, I just filed this motion I won in court. Man, here, I think it'll help you. And I hand you the motion that I just used to beat my case and go home. I give it to you. Now, currently, you got 5 years left on your sentence. So 5.5 years later, I run into you. And when I see you on Islam, boy, what's going on? Like, man, what's happening? Where you been? And you like, man, boy, I just got out. I'm like, you
Right.
just got out. How did you just get out when I gave you the motion to get you out 5.5 years ago? And you're like, oh man, I still got that. That's in my practice. You still got it. The Quran says the advantage lieth not in the possessing of good things, but in the
No.
knowing to use them. Knowing to use them.
Well,
Okay?
that's a mouthful. That's that. I'm gonna say this. At least go back a little bit, like when you were talking about some of the brothers, with the pants sagging, and then meaning certain kinds of excuses, and then now talking about basically mentioning being or ineconomical. You know what I'm saying? It just in possessing certain things, but not realizing that they have to use them certain ways. And I want to say this, right? Again, like, just to camel back, indeed, it isn't in having a thing, but the knowing to how to properly use these things. And, one of the major issues that we have is we think that we just need to collect. We're fine collectors of information. We're fine collectors of material items and things of that nature, and not understanding that, the good is our power, meaning being very useful
Right.
with these things, and not living up to our responsibilities. With every
Mm,
ability comes a responsibility. And so if you have the
right.
ability to speak, for example, then you have a responsibility to develop yourself in a way that you might speak in order to restore harmony, in order to uplift as opposed to tear down. If you have the ability to walk, then you have a responsibility to trace your steps and make sure that your next step is upright, independent, fearless. Make sure that your next step or the next footprints that you leave serve as patterns towards righteousness as opposed to patterns towards degradation, and so forth and so on. If you have the ability to hear, then you have a responsibility to seek out and listen to the truth as opposed to the falsehoods. And if you can't see, hear, and walk and talk and things of that nature for yourself, then life presents you with clear signs, different types of pain and things of that nature for you to analyze.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times we're getting these resources and things of that nature, but we're just, our ambition stops at the acquisition of things as
Mm,
opposed to seeking to embody. Like when you were speaking about Marcus Garvey saying, quote the Bible and they may believe you and things of that nature. Right now, we're in the era of time where life is demanding that you become what you know. And if you
that's right.
don't know, life is now demanding that you transmute what you are merely aware of into knowledge. And this is done by study. You know what I'm saying? There's some elementary, some fundamental things that brothers and sisters need to get back to so that we can gain a more comprehensive understanding about life and how things actually work and how we manifest things. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to come through study. There's a new illiteracy, Brother Pennington Bay. There's a new illiteracy, and it's a failure to activate the ability to unlearn and relearn. The new illiteracy
Whoa,
is
that ain't new. That's the
huh?
same disease me and you
You
had.
see what I'm
We just
saying?
got over
You see what I
it.
mean? But it take a lot of punches. We take punches like it's a Rocky movie or something. So
No bullshit.
you have to get to a point where you start to say, what is it that I don't understand? I've spent so much time thinking that I knew of all things. Come to find out I knew of all things but my own ignorance. So let me just ask myself this question. What is it that I'm missing? What is it that I don't understand? Because out of every door that's ever closed in my face, out of every door that they've ever refused to open when I step to it, out of every bad circumstance or situation or condition I have ever found myself in, one of the things I'm starting to realize that has always remained the same is me. I've
Right.
always been there when things didn't work out the way that I've
Yes,
wanted them to
sir.
work out. Right. So
Yes,
maybe
sir.
there's a connection between the things that are unfolding in my life, right, and me and my thought processes and things of that nature. And so, I want the brothers to understand this. Like when we mention certain things about their talk and walk and fashion and things, first and foremost, because you speak a certain type of dialect and lingo, we make some jokes here and there, because we talking to our family. All right, whether you know it or not, don't change it. All right. But we're talking to our family. So we might joke a little bit about the dialect and things of that nature and all that. But let me make sure you understand something. Okay. Just because you speak a certain way, that's not, that doesn't mean that you don't have what it takes in order to get the job done. Just because your clothes are sagging, just because your clothes are sagging or too tight, because I ain't gonna lie to you, brother. Right now, they're just too tight for my day. Sagging was one of the issues back in the day. Now it's just, I don't even know how brothers breathe. But the bottom line is to each his own. You know what I'm saying? Every era, do whatever. I don't want to be a hater on the podcast now because they're gonna be like, I ain't trying to hate. So my thing is this: just because you wear your clothes a certain way does not mean that you can't accomplish a certain job. Does not mean that you are an evil, corrupt man or woman. Just because you speak that way, just because you dress that way, just because, like the brother said, man, they're sitting around with the cigarettes, passing the cigarette. Hey, listen, brother. Just because you smoke a cigarette don't mean that you can't get a job done properly. Doesn't mean that you're an evil man or woman. However, with every action, there's a reaction. And one of the things we have to learn to understand is this, okay? Because you don't live in a society alone. You live in a society full of people that you're hoping that you can receive and confer mutual helps and obligations. You don't want a job from yourself. You don't want just assistance from yourself. You don't want to be seen in a certain light only from yourself. You know what I mean? So that you can accomplish other things. You don't need teamwork only from yourself. You need it from your community and society. So let's understand something here. Man comprehends the inner life by what they see and do. Man comprehends the inner parts of you by what they see and what they do. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to misperceive what they see. So what we have to do in our societies, right, is have a little more respect for certain kinds of cultural particulars, for certain types of customs and traditions. Custom does not alter the nature of the truth, but we need to start understanding that people comprehend. They gain a deeper understanding. When I say comprehend, I mean a deeper understanding of the nature of a thing. So they comprehend your inner life by what they see you doing. And although your pants worn a certain way doesn't mean you can't do the job. And although a cigarette in your hand doesn't mean that you can't do the job better, 10 times better than a man that's never smoked. And although the words coming out your mouth a certain way doesn't mean you can't do the job better than a man that speaks better than Frederick Douglass. It doesn't mean that. However, how they comprehend where you might be mentally is going to be based off of your output. So what we have established in our society are certain customs and traditions, ways in which we behave, ways we behave around those who understand us and those who don't know and are not familiar with us. You see what I mean? This is why, and I don't know too many people that don't do this. This is why we get around each other and we might, this and that and the third and blase skipped and whoop-de-whoop. And then when you pop up on the job, good morning, how are you today?
That's right.
That's not faking.
No.
That's called adjust.
No.
That's called accommodating yourself to situations for the sake of your success. You know what I mean? We have to get sometimes we get confused. Our ego gets in the way. Yeah, I would be more successful if everybody would just let me do things the way I want to do it. I would be more successful if they would just accept me for the way I am. Brothers do this with holy texts and scriptures. They walk into the church, they walk into the mosques, they walk into the temples, they even go into the workshop of the mind saying, I want to stay the way I am. So somebody here, please just give me an interpretation that doesn't offend my complacency. And this failure to change is what has us so stagnated. This failure to change is what has you come out your mouth with that stuff that the brother Pennington Bay or myself or whoever is not trying to hear when you are being repetitive in the negative, right? And so at the end of the day, you have to take an honest look at yourself and you have to say, can my condition be better? That's the bottom line. You have to meditate on that. Can my condition be better? The word condition and the word soil are the same word. And out of a soil grows certain things. It can even be the choicest flowers, or it can be the weeds that choke out the choicest flowers. But the seeds to both of these things are planted in the most fertile soil known to man based off of his thought processes. So
Mhm.
if you're not going to work on your thought process, don't cry about the types of things growing in your garden. You can't
Mhm.
do that. And I tell people this all the time, brother. A lot of our people, Pennington Bay, they are where I call the peanut butter factory. Okay, and I'm gonna say this since the time ticking. They're in a peanut butter factory, and what I mean by this is, while you're in this peanut butter factory, we know what you have to produce. Let's say it's an assembly line of 10 people. All right, while you're in this peanut butter
Mhm.
factory, I don't care what type of ideas these 10 different individuals may entertain. At the end of the day, what needs to come out of that particular production agency is peanut butter. We might have a brother on there that knows how to create fuel to get a rocket to the moon faster than you can blink, and another person that knows how to build a hoverboard, so forth and so on, right? Hey, while they're at that production agency, the only thing that can come out of there is peanut butter. Mindsets are the
Right.
same way. While you're in a certain mindset, I don't care how many good ideas you may entertain here and there about changing your life and doing certain things with it. While in that particular mindset, the only thing you can produce is what that type of mindset produces. So you may entertain good thought
Uh-huh.
processes, things of that nature, but if you don't work to change the production agency, aka the state of mind, by entertaining new thoughts, giving birth to new thoughts, and then moving along with the suggestions of those new thoughts, then you're going to be stuck on repeat. You're going to be going to jail again. You're going to be the fool that has to
That's
keep
right.
repeating while the wise continue from their first start.
That's right. Islam. Okay. So before we leave, I want to share a degree with the Moors, the Asiatic sympathizer, everybody listening, right? I want to share this degree with you. So the Quran says that men comprehend the inner life by what they see and do. So the see and the do is directing our attention to an interaction because you see things, but then what you do is how you experience the things that you see. Okay, so now you and I, or we can see the same thing as a whole multitude of people. But then how we experience it, how we interact with it will dictate how we comprehend what's on the inside of us in relation to what's outside of us. With that being the case, when I first came into the Moorish Temple of America, the first time I ever came to the podium to demonstrate across that podium, I got up there, I gave my praises and honors. I had been studying for 8 months straight. I was prepared to teach a lesson. I was so prepared to teach a lesson, but I was missing one thing. I did not have the words because the way I spoke back then was a bunch of profanity. It was only, a dialect that was reserved for street corners and prison galleries. That's what my everyday conversation was. Okay, so when I got to that podium, I could not find the words to teach more science, even though I had been studying it and preparing for that one moment. So I walked away from that podium knowing that I had to go and equip myself to do this thing that I wanted to do so bad.
That's right.
Now, what I have discovered over the course of my time as a teacher of more science, even though I'm gonna tell y'all, I am the master student, a master student of the Professor Drew Ali, who is the master teacher. Okay,
That's
with that being the case, I'm gonna give y'all the secret. I'm gonna give y'all the secret because I found myself, you know, checking myself every time I started talking to ones, not wanting to demonstrate like I came from where I came from the south side of Chicago, from the low end over there on 51st and St. Lawrence. I ain't want to talk like that, you know. But I said, well, dang, if I'm going to go back and I'm going to demonstrate this more science to them ones, I got to speak their language.
That's
So
right.
I had to intentionally make sure that I did not change the way I speak, even when I am ministering. So I discovered this one secret. All you have to do is desire to be understood. Just want to be understood. Don't concentrate on how you sound. Concentrate on being understood. Men, women, young brothers, young sisters, when you go to them job interviews, when you seeking employment, or you are trying to, sell a service or a good that you have, all you have to do is desire to be understood. Okay? And remember this. The Quran, the Holy Quran of the more scientific of America speaks the truth when it says that man, like every other seed of Allah, like every other thought of Allah, got every single solitary attribute of Allah within himself. Allah is never misunderstood when he desires to be understood. You don't ever have to be misunderstood. You have to desire to be understood. Islam Moors. That's
Islam.
it. So I ain't trying to hear that. I don't want to hear it no more. Listen, the Asiatics of America has reached a point in this journey called life that we are experiencing as one body. We have reached a point where there's no room for excuses.
I don't even think
Okay,
there's one out there.
it's not a good one out there.
A new
Hey,
one.
I had this chick that worked in the prison. She used to say that they like belly buttons. They all stink. Islam, so we ain't trying to hear that. So I'm gonna let everybody know. Paradigm Shifting the podcast has a new co-host. My brother right here. One of the Prophet Noble Ali's master students. Shay Ray Ill is the new co-host of Paradigm Shifting the podcast along with me and our other master student, the grand governess, Crystal Glover is. She ain't here right now because she don't have the experience, in the background for the conversation. So with that, I'm gonna say peace and love to everybody. You know, like it, share it, go over to YouTube at Beta Truth Forever, subscribe. That's it.